Hello and welcome to the Body Align Pro podcast. My name is Isaac Osborne, founder and CEO of Body Align Pro. In this podcast, we interview practitioners who use Body Align Pro and some of the leading experts in the health industry who are committed to taking a scientific approach to improving the form and function of the body and the growth and development of their practice. For more information about Body Align Pro, visit www.bodyalignpro.com.
All right, Isaac, welcome to your show.
Thanks for inviting me onto my show, Dave.
Yeah, I'm really privileged to be able to invite you onto your show. Obviously, the idea behind this was to give everyone that's going to be involved in the community and has been following your show and will be involved in the show going forward, an opportunity to get to know you, get to know your background, and what this space and this community is really all about. And so it's a real privilege to interview as someone that's worked with you for many, many years. I've certainly feel that's a privilege. It's really helped me in so many different ways. And so I'm thankful to be here and to flesh out everything you've gone through to become the practitioner you are today and the way in which you're able to serve people in such a valuable way as well. So it's going to be fun.
Thank you.
So maybe a good place to start would just be, maybe share a bit about your background, where you come from, how you got interested in becoming a structural integrator, and how that all unfolded from there.
Yeah, my journey really started a long time ago. Initially, I used to think my journey started when I was in a really bad car accident when I was 11 years old. But looking back on my life, my journey started a lot earlier than that. And it was back when I was maybe second, third grade, really my whole life, because my parents are artists, and particularly my mom she's a sculptor. And when I really try to trace it back as far as how much of looking at bodies and thinking about people's bodies and aside from my own, what has influenced me the most, or as far back as I can go, it would be that experience with my mom. And since she was a sculptor, she would look at people's bodies in ways that were, as a child growing up, I didn't look at people that way until we would go places, and just being around her, we'd be at a restaurant or something, and she would look at somebody going by, and she would say, look at that person's body, look at their shape, and look at how they're moving, and what do you think it feels like to be inside that person's body? And that, for me, we did it so much that it really influenced me in just being observant to people around me. And I didn't really catch on to that until a lot later, that I was actually already observant in that, until later on in my structural integration training that I actually put that together and started really thinking about how did this start for me? Why am I so seemingly familiar with looking at people's bodies? So that was really neat. But then to see us, later on, we're talking about a person's body, and then later on, I would see a sculpture of that person's body that we talked about in depth in her art studio, and then also playing with clay, like the way that clay moves and is very similar in the way in manipulating tissue in the body. And so I was playing with clay from an early age, and my mom tells a joke that I would not only play with clay, but I ate the clay. And you can imagine what comes out from that, So
I'd prefer not to imagine that.
Prefer not to imagine it. It's maybe too much information, but it's a joke in my family. Moving on to later on in life, when I was 11 years old, I was a very active kid, and was surfing and skateboarding and riding my bike, and I loved being outside. And but we were headed down to my grandma's house for Thanksgiving when I was 11, and we got in a really bad car accident. And it was a 5-car pileup on the freeway, and we were like the 3rd car in, so we were smashed in between 2 cars, front and back. And at the time, I didn't really experience any symptoms. I felt sore afterwards, but at that time, I didn't really feel like that was much of anything. And then the insurance paid for my dad and my brother and I to go to chiropractic care. Mm-hmm. And the chiropractor that we were seeing at the time, I was doing a lot of skateboarding at that time, and he had massage and chiropractic in his office, and we would get a massage first, and then we get chiropractic work. And after having that experience and going to other chiropractors, I always felt like there was something missing. And even to this day now, I can even, just thinking right now, I haven't thought about that much, how much that has actually influenced where I am actually right now in my practice, and how I look at the body and working with bones and working with movement and connective tissue and so forth. So I spent probably about a year getting that chiropractic care, and it was great. I loved it. I loved receiving the massage, and I loved feeling how my body felt afterwards. I started to notice changes in my body. And I remember him telling me, like, skateboarding is bad for you because at that time, I don't know if you're familiar with, there's goofy foot and there's regular foot. Mm-hmm. And to those out there, that it's someone standing in one position and always standing in that one position. Like always your right leg forward or always your left leg forward. And sounds like there's someone moving out there, so hopefully that doesn't mess up the audio of this. So he'd always tell me, like, that's going to mess up your body. And I think he was definitely right, but at the time I was like, yeah, whatever, that's not going to mess up my body. Having always that movement be asymmetrical, just one side of my body, did set up for things later on. Mm-hmm. And it set up for injuries later on that I had torn my ACL in my left knee, and then later on I got in another car accident when I was 16, and after that I started having chronic low back pain. And I had low back pain pretty much every single day until I was about 28 or so. And that's when right around that time, it's not the first time I got rolfed, is by the first practitioner who was a certified rolfer from the Rolf Institute. A great friend of mine, still have contact with him today. Rex, how you doing? Hope you're watching this. Love him, amazing work. As soon as I received the work, I knew that was the next direction I wanted to go. So I'll back up a little bit. That chronic pain that I had, I went to PT, I went to other chiropractic, I did physical therapy, doctors. I had other injuries around that time, and I was doing a lot of surfing, extreme sports. So I was beating the hell out of my body, and my body was already in a place now, from my own understanding, where it was really in a bad postural state, bad movement organizational state, bad coordination, bad muscle memory, everything. So it really just set up for my body not to work properly in anything that I wanted to do. And I was told time and time again that this is, you're going to have this pain for the rest of your life. You're just going to have to deal with it. And for me, I could not accept that answer. I just couldn't accept it. And I always thought there has to be a way. There has to be some kind of way. If it's impossible, I'm going to try to find it. I'm going to spend my life searching. Because to have chronic pain is, the quality of your life is terrible. I mean, after surfing, I would come in, I would have horrible headaches. I would turn my head to the side and I would get lightning shooting up the side of my neck. It sucked. It really, really sucked. And my posture was terrible. So when I got that first rolfing session, I'd already been a massage therapist for a couple years. And the background in that was, what am I going to do with my life? I didn't go to college. I didn't see the point of college because I wanted to surf all the time anyways. I hated school. I didn't do good in school at all because I'm such a visual learner and I have to use my hands. I love to build things, and that I wasn't nurtured in that environment at all. So I thought school was more like jail than anything. And it's like, no way I'm going to go to college when I absolutely hated school for the first part. So I'm just going to go surf, and then maybe I'll figure out what I'm going to do. I knew I wanted to surf, so that's what I was going to do. That
the closest thing,
right?
What's the closest thing to surfing? Okay, massage.
No, it was at that time I was working in the restaurant industry, and I was getting really tired of it. I liked the hours so I could surf all day, but I didn't like. I don't like working for people. I want to call my own shots, and so I was like, what can I do? And I started thinking back, like, what's been like a common theme in my life that that I'm good at, and there was no way I was going to become a pro surfer at that time. I didn't believe in myself enough to really go down that road, and plus my body was such a mess. There's no way I could have excelled properly at that, at 25 years old, 24. Actually, I started massage stuff at 23. At 23, 24 years old, it was such a mess. I was already late to the game to become a professional surfer. Maybe I could have, I don't know. But at this point, this is the direction I went. So I started thinking about, okay, what am I good at? And then it popped in my head that friends and family always ask me to rub their shoulders. So maybe I'm good at massage. I'll check out massage, and maybe I'll learn something that helps my own pain. Mm-hmm. And I took an intro to massage class at I was living in Kauai on the time at the community college there, and I fell in love with anatomy. Absolutely fell in love with anatomy, and I thought the world of anatomy. I thought, this is amazing. This is incredible, like the physiology of the body and what muscles are doing, and I really wanted to study it more and more. And so I took that class, and then I took a year-long course in massage therapy, and we had just tons of different modalities that we covered. And then through that period of time, I'd always heard about structural integration or Rolfing. And so when I got the opportunity, it was almost right after I got out of school, maybe like a year or so after I got out of school, I met Rex, and he gave me my first Rolf session. And it really stood out to me because in a yoga class, I tweaked my back, even more tweaked than it was. I tweaked it even more, and the pain instantly went away after that session. Dramatically reduced my pain. And so I continued receiving sessions from him, and then I was really, really fortunate to find out that one of the most sought-after teachers in the world of the work was on Kauai, living maybe a mile from my house, and holding trainings about another mile from my house. And so
that was Emmett?
That was Emmett Hutchins. And at that point, I had gone through a couple years. I was the director of medical massage at a physical therapy clinic. I had started so I was about maybe 4 years, I think, into my practice. 4 or 5 years, I can't remember exactly. And I had focused mainly on medical massage at that point. And after I left the PT clinic, and I started my own business, and I was doing medical massage. I really enjoyed the clinical aspect of massage therapy and really trying to help people with their pain. And at that point in time, a lot of my pain was reduced, but I was also still suffering from chronic pain. And so I went to the Guild of Structural Integration. They had a satellite school on Kauai, and Emmett Hutchins was the main teacher there. And I think this is like in 2003, maybe. And I enrolled in their basic training, and it was just like light bulb after light bulb after, like, oh, I think I'd been stumbling on a lot of this stuff. And all these light bulbs were going off in my head, like, oh, that's why, and oh, that's why that what I did worked that time, and so forth. And that's in a long nutshell, basically how I really came to the beginning of my structural integration training.
Yeah, and so there's obviously some very unique things that go into the way you would work in massage versus structural integration. So you then I think started your practice in Kauai, had a full running practice for how many years was it when you were in Kauai?
I had a full-time practice in Kauai for 10 years.
10 years. And then decided to make the move to Santa Barbara, right?
8 years ago, yeah. So I've been in practice now 18 years. And we moved to Santa Barbara 8 years ago. And it's been such a great fit for us. We really, really love it here. My kids have great opportunity in the schools and what they're doing with the schools, and also more opportunity for my wife to find work, and she also helps me out in the back end, a lot of the stuff with the app, and then also my clinic business, Motion Unlimited. And it's been a great community here. They've really accepted us and with open arms, and it's a lot of fun. I really enjoy working with a lot of people here in Santa Barbara. I'm really fortunate.
Well, I'm glad you made the move.
Yeah, well, we never would have met.
I know. That would have been terrible. I probably wouldn't be playing golf right now, honestly, because I was so messed up when I met you. So talk about, you're doing exclusively, you're a structural integrator for a very lengthy period of time. And then I think at some point you went on to do some training with Egoscue. What was the impetus behind that? Was it something was missing, or did you work with an Egoscue trainer or something like that started to make you believe that maybe there was something else that could be added on to create that form and function component of the practice?
So form and function is a great way to describe, like, an overview umbrella of what I do now. And so form, manipulating the form, that would be the structural integration work, manipulating the tissue and the form to change the function. The movement work, which I started out in Egoscue, but I've gone on to study other things and develop my own stuff. Now, the function part is to change the function to change the form, or to influence the form. And so hitting it from both angles of form and function is a really, really important aspect in my opinion, from my experience, and in my own body and working with clients. And how I got there it was really interesting. I was my son, I think, was at that time maybe 4 or 5 years old. It was around 2004, 2005. And literally, I was maybe a year or just after my structural integration training had finished. I was at a birthday party for one of my son's friends, and a fellow parent asked me, what do I do for a living? And I said, I do this really cool thing called structural integration, and then working with posture, and it's really helped me out. And at that point, it did. It really took about 80% of my pain away, like neck pain, headaches, back pain. It's gone. So, I was stoked. I was really, really stoked. And she goes, oh, that sounds like the Egoscue method. And I say, what? You know? You have to torque your face. So I looked it up, and he has a couple books. At that point, I think he had 2 or 3 books at that point. I'm not entirely sure, but there's Pain Free by Pete Egoscue was the book that I got. And I ordered the book. I think Amazon was around at that time. I think I ordered it on Amazon. Crazy. Anyways, got
the early days of Amazon.
Early days of Amazon. And in Kauai, that was like, amazing to have something shipped over there and not get that, pay that much in shipping. So I got the book, and I read it, and I was like, oh my God, this is incredible, because he's saying the exact same things. It was so close to what Dr. Rolfe was saying in her book, Rolfing, that I thought he plagiarized it to some extent. And I was like, okay, this is amazing. And I at that point, I had tried Pilates. I studied yoga for a number of years, and I still love yoga. I can get more into that later, but this really, the way that Egoscue was looking at the body was so similar to Rolfing, by looking at a line of gravity, looking at how the joints line up, looking at joint relationships, all those things. I think, oh my gosh, this is Rolfing, but from a movement standpoint. And so I read the book, and I tried doing the exercises out of the book. And at this point, I was still having not chronic pain, but every now and then my low back would be really sore. I'd be like, why? Why is it still sore? I'm receiving this great work. I'm even doing trades with Emmett Hutchins. Like, how lucky am I to be where I am? But why am I still having this reoccurring pain? Mm-hmm. What's going on with my body? And why, also, when I take photos of myself, I wasn't seeing the changes in my body that I was expecting to get from structural integration, from just the tissue work in itself. And so I have this injury, on my wrist, and I call Emmett, and I can't get in to see him. And he'd see me in about a week or some point, And so what do I do? And I can't remember exactly if the book just popped in my head, or if I saw it on the shelf, or whatever it was. But however, I was like, oh yeah. So I opened up the book, and they had a routine in there for wrist pain. And I thought, okay, I'll try this, right? Because I was in a lot of pain. I couldn't even hold a glass of water. It was in so much pain. And so I started doing it, and the first time I did it, I noticed some relief in my wrist. And then consecutively over the next couple of days, I practiced it over and over the next couple of days, and my wrist was getting better and better and better. And I was watching this big lump muscle just like start to slowly drop. And then Emmett called me and said, hey, I can get you in. And at that point, I was like maybe 4 or 5 days into it. And I was like, great. So I go over to his house, and he does some arm work on me and stuff, and then gone, like so quickly. I was like, what? How did that happen? And so that really intrigued me to start playing with the exercises in the book. And so if I back up a little bit, from the structural integration training, they take photos. Mm-hmm. And they do a before and after of each session. And then we track that progress so that we can see the changes in the body throughout the 10 sessions of structural integration. And this was another eye-opening moment for me when I walked into the first day of class. A guy named Jeff Lynn was there, and he was the creator of this image system called Image J. And that system was very similar to Bodyline Pro, and I modeled a lot of it off of Bodyline Pro. And there's a whole story behind that too. But I'm really grateful for Jeff Lynn and everything he taught me. And at that time there was another guy named Chris who was taking care of the imaging system. And later on I ended up starting to take care of the imaging system. But I set up this whole camera setup in my office based off of what they had at the Guild. And
maybe it'd be helpful at this point to touch on some of the features of what you originally learned there and how that played into.
Yeah. The Guild for Structural Integration had an imaging system built and coded by Jeff Lynn, and he used open source software to do that, and he completely customized this great program, and he had it open source, and he gave it away for free. I mean, just amazing that he did that, you know. However, some of the issues of that were that a lot of people that weren't really tech savvy didn't know how to download a computer, and he didn't really want to be tech support. Mm-hmm. So, and that's part of the reason why he made it for free. He's like, here's the program, you guys play with it, you figure it out, kind of thing. Which is really, really nice of him to do that. And so the Guild for Structural Integration they are dedicated to the teachings of Dr. Ida Rolf, the founder of structural integration. And they practice the classic 10 sessions of structural integration. And so going to the Guild for Structural Integration and watching my own progress, my body absolutely changed. It absolutely changed my posture and my alignment and how I felt and all those things. And you got to see it in the photographs. But still, time after that, I was still tracking myself because I had set it up in my own office. And because I wanted to start taking pictures of my own clients when I finished the course. And I was noticing how the many benefits of taking photos. And later on, I came to manage the software for the Guild because Jeff wasn't coming over to Kauai anymore, or not as frequently. So Emmett and the Guild needed somebody to kind of know the system and set it up for each class, and that's how I started getting involved in each class as well, around 2005, I think it was. And so I got to play with it too at my office, and it's great. Like the most helpful feature that I found was being able to toggle back and forth between images. Mm-hmm. And so that gave this like animation to a before and after. So you could see sometimes you have to speed it up to be able to see what kind of shifted. If it was sometimes an internal shift in someone's body can be minute on camera. Mm-hmm. And but you can see it if you toggle back and forth, and if you're placing the camera in the right place, you're really consistent with with how they're standing in the same place, and if you're not coaching them how to stand. And there's a lot of factors that come into play with taking proper photographs and trying to get that scientific method, so to speak, with a two-dimensional image as much as accurate as you possibly can. Mm-hmm. So I got to play with that. And so at that time, I wasn't managing the system of ImageJ, but I was taking photos in my own office because I had already completed the training, and I just love being able to have those before and after images, and also to educate clients like, okay, look, check this out. This is where you have a kyphosis or a lordosis or a rotation in your pelvis or whatever it may be. And most times people, they don't see those things themselves, and you point it out like, oh my gosh, look at that. Now, does that mean it involves their pain, their chronic pain? Most of the time it does, but just because you have a rotation in the pelvis doesn't mean that's responsible exactly for the back pain. There's a big percentage of the time that it does, in my experience. So back to playing with the Pain-Free book by Egoscue, I started doing those exercises, and I started changing. My body started changing in ways that I noticed when I was kite surfing. I noticed in photos, because what I would do is I would play with all the sequences in the book. And I would take before photos of myself and after photos, just like we did before and after in sessions of structural integration. And sometimes I would see changes, sometimes I wouldn't. So I started really questioning myself and noting down like, okay, why am I not seeing changes here? And really just playing with all of them like this, like mad scientist in my own little office den, And some I would see, okay, maybe I need to practice it for a longer period of time, and I'd do practice for a long period of time. Then I would see something shift and something change, and then I was also really learning about my own body, and really learning about how there was such a lack of movement and mobility and relationship of my joints through my entire system, which was great because that's what Dr. Rolfe talked about as well as the joint relationship. She called it random bodies. People come in to see her who hadn't been Rolfed. She called them random bodies because the work of structural integration or Rolfing ends up organizing the body. And it's a really great statement because it talks about how no one really ever teaches you how to use your body. You know, and like learning to walk, no one teaches you how to do it. You observe your surroundings, you observe those who are around you and how they walk, and you copy that, but then you add your own unique filter on top of it. So you may have similarities to the way your mom or your dad walk. You know, maybe your dad has a limp and you walk with a slight, heel drag or something like that. So we all take in this environment of ours and do the best that we can with it, but we never go talk to somebody that goes, this is what organized movement looks like. This is what happens when the pelvis goes here and this goes here, because we all end up like Moshe Feldenkrais, the founder of Feldenkrais therapy or movement through was it health? No wait. Anyways, I forget. He talked about how everyone starts off at a kind of a random point, but then natural, proper movement ends up looking the same. Yeah. Because there are, as much as some of my colleagues want to argue to some extent, there are biomechanics of the body. Absolutely. But the problem, and this is where I agree with them, the problem with most biomechanics is we're looking at it from such a robotic, dead anatomy aspect of the bicep does this, when in actuality the bicep does so much more. So this is what I was really like exploring while I was doing this. And unbeknownst to Emmett, I was actually kind of testing him too. And I told him later, I came clean later on, but for about a year or maybe a little bit more, I was, at that point, Emmett had invited me to come teach with him, and I was managing the system, and I'd already been playing with the Vygotsky work on the side, kind of like just on my own, because I wanted to explore it on my own before I said anything to anybody else about it. Like, does this stuff work? And I was starting to see changes, and I was starting to notice things, and then he started to notice that I was changing. And this is where, I have a little guilt in the sense that I didn't tell him because he thought it was the Rolfing that we were doing. And so I thought, okay, well, this is interesting. This is an opportunity for me to really explore this. So I would do the exercises, and then in between sessions, I would do the exercises, and I'd come back. He's like, "Oh, look at that change." And I would look at my photos. I'm like, "Yeah, he's right. That did change." And sometimes you would see things that I didn't even see, which was great because I said, "Oh my God, he's right. That did change." And then I would stop doing the exercises, and then my body would go backwards because I'm spending all day working on people, leaning over a table, and I'm kite surfing and I'm surfing. So these movements tend to break down the body rather than build the body. And so he would notice, he's like, why did that get worse? And then finally I told him, I said, look, I have something, I gotta come clean here. I gotta tell you, this is what I've been doing. He's like, oh, that's very interesting. And then I shared it with him, and he read the books, and he's like, you really should pursue this. He really encouraged me more than anyone else to pursue the direction that I have gone. And it was so heartwarming. I couldn't come to tears because we became really good friends, and he was so dedicated to the work. More than anybody that I have ever known, he lived structural integration. And there's a thing called standing on your line. He did a line meditation every single day. And so it meant so much to me for him to tell me and not judge me and go that direction. So I just feel really, really grateful. I'm getting kind of teared up here because I have so much gratitude for that. Because I wouldn't be where I am now if if he hadn't really encouraged me so much. Maybe I would, but not to the point where I feel so much gratitude for him. And I think that's really important. And we stayed friends for a long time until the point he passed away a year ago. It's almost like his anniversary is actually, of his passing is like either today or actually yesterday.
Wow.
So maybe that's also part of why I'm getting kind of choked up about it, which is funny coincidence, so to speak, of doing this podcast and talking about him, you know? So, what an amazing experience to have those changes, to have his eyes that were, you know, his 45 years of experience, to see those changes in my body and go, what's going on there? But he kind of did his own, and this is also what inspired me too, is that he had his own. He stood on his line every day, but he also talked about how he did his own kind of movement integration stuff on his own, as it was based off the Rolf principles, and like he did it, like he called it his own yoga, so to speak, or his own movement stuff. And it was so amazing when I worked on him to watch his body change, and he was always so excited when he had pain. Like, oh, he's like, you gotta check out the spot that's hurting in my back. It's so great. It's this new spot, and I'm changing there. I'm like, I'm coming out of a rotation there. I'm like, yeah, you are. Like he was like, from the time that I worked with him, like I watched his arches change in his feet. This is a man who's in his 70s. I watched his arches change. I watched his lumbar spine change. And together we were on this, it was this great companionship because we were on the same track in a lot of ways. I was like exploring with this other movement work and you know, I never really stood on my line. I tried doing it and it just wasn't really my thing. I love the movement aspect. I do meditate now a lot more frequently than I ever have in the past. And I'm coming to this love of meditation, and I think he also influenced that as well. I haven't been as consistent recently, but you know, for a year and a half, I meditated every single day, and that made a huge shift in my brain. But you know, coming back to you know, taking photos and all that stuff, and playing with that movement work, and how much it changed my body and my experience with him has really led me to where I am right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I can see how that was a constant theme in all of your training, in bringing the photos, bringing that scientific approach, that objective approach that gives you that kind of like stimulus response. If I do this, if I do that, it's educational, it informs the practice, it teaches you, it educates the clients. And, you know, with you doing both the function work and the form work, it's been a constant theme throughout. And so in a sense, it's not even surprising that, you know, that you might have created Bodyline Pro and got this app going, because obviously it's had such a profound impact in the way you've run your practice and the way you work with your clients.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, again, where I have to pay homage to the Egoscue work as well, and everyone that, you know, I experienced. I can name just a ton of names of people that influenced me, like Pete Egoscue for one, and a bunch of people at the Egoscue Clinic that I'm really grateful for because of how much it influenced me to where I am right now. And I've gained so much freedom in my body that I really, really want others to experience that as well. I want other practitioners, my clients, you know, as many people in the world to experience what it feels like to have a truly free body. And that's part of the work of being able to, for me personally, how I look at taking photos is what I'm doing working. Mm-hmm. Because if I don't have that mindset of if what I'm doing is working, then what am I doing? Mm-hmm. Am I just going through a repetitive pattern of am I just repeating exactly what I learned? And this also, like when I got the opportunity to teach advanced trainings with Emmett, and it always blew me away when practitioners would come in and they'd be practicing they had been practicing a lot longer than I have, 20 years, and a lot of them, they would have these moments of, oh my gosh, I've just been doing exactly what I learned in the basic training. In the sense that in the basic trainings, what happens is we'll do a demonstration. And there is like a demonstration of the recipe, so to speak. And people will just kind of go through that pattern regardless of what the body is. Like for instance, if there's an anterior tilt or there's a posterior tilt. Now, granted, they have thought more beyond that, but they find themselves kind of stuck in this pattern of still training the way that they trained in the past. And I would observe that, and people are like, oh my, and I would feel really empathetic towards them, and that, wow, that, again, how lucky I am to be where I was, but how can I stop myself from getting in that place? Mm-hmm. How can I not end up there? And there's a few times in my practice where that was kind of the case, where I was like, am I just doing like your treadmill? It's like industrialization of the work, so to speak. There was also the fact that it was kind of a mystery at sometimes, like I would do a first hour on somebody of the structural integration, and they would have amazing changes. And then I would do a very similar body, very similar hour on them of like the classic work, and not have that big of changes. And so this brought up the question of the form and function. Like, what's going on here? Like, why did that person change more than that other person? Yes, psychology to some extent comes into play, for sure. But I'm really after what Dr. Rolfe was after, is organizing the human body around the vertical line. And how can we do that? How can we become more efficient at that? How can we become masters of gravity? And so by tracking these photos of my clients and seeing the changes and seeing what didn't change, seeing my mistakes, seeing my failures not work, led me to start exploring more outside the box. Mm-hmm. And that's where, in my own body, right? That's what I was experiencing in my own body, working with Emmett, studying the Egoscue work, getting mentored by the Egoscue and everyone, the franchise of Egoscue, and then having all that come together for myself. And I'm still on a journey, I'm not in a perfect place right now. I don't think I'll ever will be, but part of my journey now is so much different. I get so many other light bulbs that are coming on now compared to before, but because I'm still taking photos. Mm-hmm. And I'm surprised every time and excited actually when it doesn't work. Because then it gives me this opportunity to go, okay, what was it that I missed? Mm-hmm. What was it that I didn't see there? And the clients appreciate it because I'm really transparent in my work. And I'm not going to say, oh, you look better or you're moving better. I'm asking, does that make a difference? Mm-hmm. Can you tell it makes a difference? For instance, I had this one kid, a 16-year-old kid that I was working with, where I combined a session of corrective exercises and the connective tissue work. And he stood up. He looked different to me, but I couldn't, I've stopped judging that. Mm-hmm. Because I like to take the photos and see, because I can really see before and after right away if they are different. And I said, do you feel any different? He's like, yeah, I don't know. I feel a little different. We took photos, and like the amount of change in his body was so dramatic that he went, oh my gosh. And then he practiced. This is the other component that is so exciting in my opinion. He practiced those exercises, and then when he came back the next session, he was as good as he was when he left. Mm. And this is something that I watched time and time again with the classes and in my own practice before I really started adding in the corrective exercises, was that someone would come in, say for a first hour or whatever, I'd do a session, take after photos, and we see changes, and then they come back the next time, and they're maybe not as bad as they were before, but it's pretty similar in the position of their posture and their orientation of their body the next time they come in. They didn't hold that massive shift in their body that entire time. I don't really see that as much anymore when the people practice the exercises that I give them. Now, they don't always get it right either, and that's not a big deal. I'm not super attached to seeing that shift in the body, but it gives me a lot of information, and that's where I just love using this system, this program. And why I created it was I was after Jeff Lynne for a long time, like, you got to push this out there, you got to push it out there. And then the operating systems of computers keep changing, right? And it became obsolete. I tried to download other programs, other systems, but it didn't give me that animation type of feature that I really wanted to give me that feedback. And I was like, okay, I'll pretty much, for selfish reasons, create it for myself. And then I thought, maybe there's a market for it. I don't know. And then, yeah, so that's in a long story. that's how it really became to be, creating this software. And that in itself has been quite the journey. Which
I've watched. It's been a labor of love and despair over the years. From a development side, from a practitioner working with the body, going to working with engineers in India and elsewhere to get this whole thing put together has been quite a process. But why don't you talk just about the main features of the app for those that aren't using it or just getting new to it. Maybe this is an initial exposure to Bodyline Pro, the app itself, or this community. Talk about the app a bit, some of the main features that it provides, how you use the app yourself, some of the important components of making sure you're utilizing the app in the way it's been designed, and then maybe we can talk about the community and the podcast from there.
So the main features in the app that I think are the most useful are mostly in the free plan that people get when they first sign up. So there's no time limit on it. It's all based off of data. So they have a certain amount. I think it's like they can take up to 20 to 30 photos and 10 videos or something like that. So you have photos and videos, and it has its own camera feature, so you take photos of somebody, it automatically shifts in the camera to the positions of the body that you're taking photos of, and it stores it as a file in a client's file or patient's file, so client or patient. So you have all your clients and your patients filed, and then you tap on one of your clients or your patients, and then it has all their sessions. And you either all their sessions of images or all their sessions of videos. And then you have the option to be able to select each one or 2 to 10 of those sessions and compare them. Because that comparison feature, right, is really part of the scientific method, in the sense that Emmett used to talk about stimulus response result, stimulus response result, stimulus response result. What is the stimulus? What's the response? What's the result? And so if we take a look at that and compare photos by photos each session, and most importantly, I think I hit on this earlier, you have to line up the camera in the same spot every single time.
Yeah,
which we have SqrShot, which I had to, after I launched the app, I realized, oh my gosh, there's nothing out there that really allows us to do that. Because, those other devices, I mean, there might be some other devices, but nothing as seamless and easy as this. And this is what I use every single day. So, and there's some cool new features coming out. Hopefully they'll be out really soon, where we have superimposed the previous session over the camera, so you'll see exactly where that person was the last time. And if you have tape set up like in my office, you'll be able to line up the tape and really get accurate on where the camera was the previous time. Because, you know, I have a camera set up here that I do move, but I have taped it to the floor, and so I know where it's at. But sometimes I hit it, or a client grabs it, or whatever. So it's, and we have this option of even mounting it on the wall.
Mm-hmm. Or on the ceiling.
On the ceiling, yes.
SqrShot on the ceiling right here.
So yeah, it gives us a lot of options of how to take photos in the same spot every single time, to be able to get that as accurate as we can with a two-dimensional image, right? To see those before and after changes. And then that gives us the knowledge of, like, okay, if you're taking photos, one before photo before the session, after the session, right away, you can see the changes in the body. And then the next time they come in, you can toggle between the after of the first session and the before of the second session, and see what happened to their body in between the sessions. Mm-hmm. And that's so valuable, because I had a client the other day come in and she goes, you know, I don't feel like I'm changing and all this stuff. And okay, well, let's take some photos. And sure enough, she had changed from like 3 weeks ago that I saw her, and I hadn't seen her for 3 weeks. And she was practicing her exercises, and she's like, I don't know, I like, right before we took photos, I kind of feel better, but I don't know, you know. And it gives people this hope and this realization that, oh my gosh, my body is changing. And sometimes it doesn't change, you know, and that means either maybe they don't have the right exercises, or they were practicing that exercise incorrectly, or the connective tissue work isn't doing what it's quote unquote supposed to do. Mm-hmm. Or maybe they do have some kind of psychological situation in their lives that is weighing down on them heavily, that's not allowing them to grow as an individual, you know. So in that case, I refer out, and that does happen from time to time. And it's amazing. I've even seen before and after. I have images of before and after of people in severe nerve pain right before surgery, and then after surgery, and you see the postural changes actually change after the surgery, because they're not in so much pain anymore. Like their body was so far gone, so to speak, that none of the corrective exercises, none of the connective tissue work actually helped to a degree to really lessen their pain, because the nervous system is so frantic at that point, because the nerve is so compromised that it won't change. Mm-hmm. And then they get, like, say, a herniated disc, they get the herniation removed, and then it allows the body to relax enough that it actually shifts the body back to a more relaxed position. So it's amazing to track all of that and have all that stuff and look back on it. And then I also have clients that, you know, that I haven't seen for a while, like, oh, what was it about that client, you know, and what was it I was working with before? And we have another new feature with notes coming out that, you know, we have, each session has notes that you can make in it. And like, if you're taking images, you can take notes. If you're taking videos, you can take notes, and you can compare the notes as well. But now I have a new feature with just clinical notes that you can just really on the fly, if you're like thinking about something and you want to put it in there without adding images or without adding video, you can add the notes to it, and then just compare those notes as well. So I can pull up the last 5 sessions and go, okay, I did this and I did this and this happened, this changed, and I can have all of that in my clinical notes, because that's what I do with corrective exercises. I notate all exercises that I do with every single client, and I store that and file that. But it was hard for me to do that with just the images and video notes. And it's the videos you can see, and this is why I have it mounted on the wall, because I just throw my iPad right here and I have a runway in my office that somebody can walk up and down, and then I'm placing that in the same spot every time, and I'm getting accurate gait every time. And it's fun to be able to have those tools to be able to do that. And also with movement, with the videos, say I have someone do, like in yoga they call it cat and cow, I can see their spinal flexion and extension. And then I can also measure that with our angle or measure angle tools and see how much pelvic extension and flexion they're getting in relationship to their femur and their upper back. And we can measure, oh, they're getting 30 degrees to 45 degrees or whatever here, and how much those changes, or squat range of motion. Someone videotape someone doing a squat and how much their squat range of motion is changing. And the clients just absolutely love it. Absolutely love the fact that they get to see their body changes, and they don't need me either to even look at those changes, because then we have a patient portal site called Body Align Connect that gives all the videos and the comparison tools to them as well. So if they're working with another practitioner, or they're working with a doctor, or they just want to show it off to their friends and family, they can do that. They can have it on their phone, Android or iOS, on Apple. They can show it right on their phone with the same comparison features.
Yeah.
So it's that aspect of it's really exciting in a lot of ways, because word of mouth marketing for any service industry is, or for any industry really, but especially for the service industry, is number one. It's your best marketing that's out there. And if your clients are walking around with their before and after results in their pocket, that they can show anybody that stuff, oh, did you see so-and-so? Somebody says, hey, I got back pain, and you go, oh, you should see so-and-so. Here's what happened to me. And they're like, wow, I'm calling them up. So I want to take what works really, that's really helped me in my practice become so successful, and give it to everybody else. Give these tools to everybody else so that their practice can do the same. And then if their practice is thriving, then there's more people that are being helped, and there's more people wanting to study this work, and so on, and we can really bring this mobile laboratory to the world, So that's what excites me so much about doing this, about working on this very long project, and hopefully it's a lot longer, because I've enjoyed the process, the painful times and the fun times. I've learned a ton from it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and one of the things that you just have to appreciate about photos and what you've created here is photos and what has happened to the body and the way it looks is a great equalizer, in the sense that, we can talk about how this method's better than that, or this works or this doesn't. And, that's all, experiential or, an opinion or something like that. But you take a picture of the body, you do something, you take a picture again, there's your proof. There, and in that way, it gives a very even playing field, a very objective way for cooperatively and also individually as a practitioner to move your work forward. And that's some of the things you've talked about and maybe hasn't mentioned quite is that constant slight edge improvement. There's a really good book called The Slight Edge, which talks about making small daily changes and improvements every single day, and that is that ability to evaluate things on that objective plane without guessing, and just looking and seeing every day as you're working with your clients, both for the clients to see and for you to see, is very plain and allows people to be objective about what's improving, and allows you to make that constant improvement over time. And then, one of the things that I think is really exciting about the opportunity of creating Body Align Pro and the community is that you have so many other practitioners that are going to be able to participate in the same objective, objective analysis of their work. And maybe you can talk a little bit about the community and what the potential of that is, as far as moving the structure integration, fitness work, personal training, whatever it may be, working with the body and cooperatively sharing what's working and what's not, and how that can move the body of work forward.
Well, at this point in time, the Body Align Pro community is small, and at this at this time we don't have a setting that is where everyone in the Body Align Pro community can come in and share ideas, and this is where what we're talking about is in the process of being created. In reality, in a lot of ways, the app in itself, I've been working on it for the last 3 years and have, I really want it to be a quality product. And I've got it to the point where it's not perfect, absolutely not perfect. There's still some bells and whistles that need to be, fine-tuned, but now it's working a lot. And, I use it every single day. So I'm not going to tolerate the fact that if the thing's not working, I'm not going to tolerate it. Mm-hmm. So the community aspect absolutely is a huge component. And I'm really excited about this community aspect because I've had 2 experiences that also have really shaped me in a lot of ways. Is when I taught for the Guild for Structural Integration and being in the clinic. I was a clinic owner of the Egoscue method here in Santa Barbara. I was a franchise owner for a while, and also I taught for Egoscue University. And the way that classes are set up is the great equalizer in a lot of ways, where if everyone coming to the table, so to speak, can this kind of set their preconceived stuff behind or to the side and open their mind. It's amazing the process of what happens, the creativity that comes out of it, the how people excel, the light bulbs that go off when you share something like, "Oh, I've seen that before. Check this out. Try this. It may or may not work." Mm-hmm. And then when it works, everyone's like, "Oh my God, that's amazing." Mm-hmm. And that would happen in the classes at the Guild. And it comes from this environment of where it's very powerful to have so many people together talking about things of like, okay, how does this shift and how does this change? Well, Bodyline Pro has the potential, when this community has an access to that type of forum, so to speak, to do that virtually, mm-hmm. right? And if we have hundreds of people, thousands of people doing that, how fast does our body of work, regardless if it's structural integration, personal training, physical therapy, movement work, whatever, it doesn't matter. It comes together, and this community is coming together and talking about, hey, check this out. This is what I did with this client, and I did this exercise, or I rolfed this area, or whatever it may be, and look at these changes. Mm-hmm. And you may get the similar change, you may not. And to have that feedback, oh, I tried it and it didn't work that well, but this changed. Mm-hmm. So we're compiling all of this data, so to speak, to really influence each other to be able to grow as a community and make a larger difference and make our work more effective regardless of what it is. Mm-hmm. I'm sure there will be disagreements. There always is in humanity. But if we can just come together and really set aside any of the preconceived notions of anything and really take that scientific approach of questioning, because science really is about the question, right? It's not about the answer, because every time you get an answer in science, it brings up another question, mm-hmm. right? So we love to, in my opinion, human beings love to go, oh, science validated this, and that's how it is. It's law. And then we find out 10 years later, eggs are not bad for us, they're actually good. So, there's so many examples of that. You probably could spend a lifetime researching how many times human beings have been wrong. Mm-hmm. Actually, I haven't read this book yet, but a client has told me about it. He said there's a book about this. It's like humans are actually wrong most of the time than right. Mm-hmm. And if I really look at my own experience of life, that sure is true. How many mistakes I've made and failures I made. But that's the inspiration, right? Is that failure is really, if you allow it to not, squash you, mm-hmm. is actually a very inspiring thing, because it's information about, okay, well, that didn't work that way. If I come at it this direction, maybe it'll work.
Well, when you go back to that experience of when you were teaching the advanced course and you had that 20-year rolfer come in and went, oh, man, I've been doing it this way for so long. If only I had known this, I could have, I'm sure they could just start thinking about all the different people that they maybe couldn't quite get the release or couldn't get the the pattern they wanted to see, and they just couldn't make the difference, right? And how with a cooperative spirit like that in sharing these principles, how often you could maybe prevent or speed up that learning curve for so many practitioners, so that that doesn't have to happen. They don't have to have that fear of that feeling of loss in knowing that, man, if I just had an objective way of looking at things and I had a cooperative effort from others that had the experience and we could all work together, this is a mastermind principle, right? From Think and Grow Rich. We have our own mastermind, and the idea is when two or more minds come together in a spirit of harmony for a definite purpose, a third invisible tangible force likened to a third mind is created, which is that everyone grows exponentially as a result. We all benefit. And there's this other force that is not 1 + 1 = 2, it's 1 + 1 = 10, right? That everyone can cooperatively work together. And that's one of the things I really appreciate about what your tensions behind and what you're creating with this community and with this app is you have an objective plane. Everyone can analyze things from a scientific approach, like this is what happened in the body. Regardless of what they did, this is what I did. Everyone can look at that from objective plane, and you're cultivating a community of cooperation in the sense that everyone can grow together for the because everyone, all the practitioners are running their own individual practice. They don't have anyone to bounce the ideas off of. And the reality is, if everyone could become better as a practitioner in their own practice, how is that a bad thing?
Right? And exactly. And there is forums. Absolutely, there are forums for structural integrators. There's forums for personal trainers. There's forums for all these people. And what I personally feel that is missing, is the biggest traction that I typically see. Like if I post to the forum something to the forum, and especially if I post visual images or before and after video of someone changing, people are like, how did you do that? Mm-hmm. How did you get those results? As opposed to, typically people will write in, hi, can anybody help? Can anyone help? I have this client that has such and such. They're experiencing such and such pain, da 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 da. And then people will chime in with their advice, which is wonderful. But if we had that visual image,
where's the barometer, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Not only having that visual image gives all these other practitioners so much more information, but it gives that person the ability to go, thank you for the information, try it out, come back with an after photo of like, check this out, it didn't work, or it did work, or check out completely unexpected result number 3.
Yep.
And it like when I read that stuff, like, where's the images? Where's the images in my head? Respectfully, I'll chime in with some advice if I have the time, or I think that I can actually help. I'll chime in, but most of the time I think, if we just had this tool, like a video of this person walking or squatting or doing whatever, it would make it so much more clear for all of us to be able to go, hey, check that area out. And like what Emmett used to do to me all the time in class, and with all my other people that I've worked with in Egoscue, I'd be looking at something and they would see something else completely. I remember this one time I was working with Emmett, and it was like a 6 hour, I believe, and the guy I was working with, it was a student. I was trying to help the student out, and he was like, I just can't get this to change. And it was something in the lower leg. And we're like, yeah. And I was like, okay, maybe it's this. And I was just really hyper focused on this area. And Emmett comes over and has the guy kind of lean over, and then he just puts his elbow right in the spot in the spine and has the guy move a certain way, and that whole area changed in the lower leg. And we're just like, duh, you know, like, it was like, I mean, that's the kind of thing that this has the potential to happen with if you share these type of images, of course, with the client's approval, of course, right? And especially if it's a private forum, knowing that this is not going to be for marketing reasons, maybe just, and you can fade out someone's face or whatever with the images, and share it with the forum, and people can go, oh, check out their left shoulder. That might have something to do with their right arch, you know? So that opportunity, I really want to help provide for the world, because I'm going to learn a lot too. You know, I don't know everything. No way. That's impossible. Nor do I want to know everything, because then it takes the joy out of my work, right? It would be boring. You know, and so having that community, I would love to have that community, because when I was in the classes, I just loved that. And at Egoscue, typically their clinics are oriented around, like, they'll have a session with somebody, but they invite you back in to come do the exercises so that you can make sure that you're doing them right. And people come in, they utilize that, you know, for free. They go back in, they utilize the exercises while they're in the clinic. And I don't do that in my practice because I don't have a big enough space at this point in time, but it's something that I really valued, because having people come in, you get a lot of questions, and not only will that person ask a question, but there might be somebody over there that's listening who never thought to ask that question, you know, and they go, oh my gosh, maybe that's part of my situation. Because part of the journey for people, for myself and all my clients, and I believe everyone else's clients, is part of the journey is learning from others. Learning what is it about your own journey that you need to learn in your body to be able to be, in my opinion, I'm trying to be the best human I possibly can be. And gosh, that would be amazing if everyone came together and had that same intention and that same attitude, that let's try to be the best humans we can be potentially. Let's share this and listen to each other and try stuff out and play with it, not be from the time, well, this does this and this does this. How boring is that? You know? Rigid, you know? It's so rigid.
It kind of closes the door to new perspectives, right? As soon as you believe you have the answer, you close the door to a completely different perspective that says, well, I've worked on this knee before, and I can do this kind of work with it, and it fixes it. But then someone else can walk right in and go, and it just changes it in a way that you have those light bulb moments, right? It's just that mentality of being open to those ideas and sharing in that spirit of harmony and willingness to listen and cooperate. I mean, it can just leapfrog things forward in ways that otherwise you couldn't. You just don't have that third set of eyes.
Right. And I think that's what happens for most people when they go to workshops and when they go to something like, gosh, if we had that in a virtual sense all the time, why not? Why not take that opportunity to really grow like that and shift everything?
But again, you need to have that objective, those photos. This is what I did. These are the results. Experiment with that. Come back with the results, and then everyone can objectively start to evaluate. And that's how things tend to move
There needs
forward.
to be some kind of foundation set.
Yeah.
And that's where the potential of this. I'm positive that when this takes off 5 years from now, it's not even going to be recognizable to what it is right now. You know, I have no clue what this is really going to be. And it already is that, because 3 years ago I thought, okay, I'm going to put this and I'm going to put this and I'm going to put this in there. And then I got feedback from users and they're like, hey, what about this? And what about that? And I'm like, oh my God, that's a great idea. I never even thought of that. And I put it in the app, you know, and that's what I want. I want that feedback. I want people to be excited as I am about this and go, this is so cool. If you had this in there, what would that do? You know, and there's also been some feedback where like, yeah, maybe, you know, but for the most part, all the feedback that I've gotten, I've done it. I put it in there, you know, and I'm really, really grateful to everybody that has sent me feedback. And so that I can improve this to how they want to use it. You know, it's not about me, it's about how they want to use it and in their practice and what's going to make it more efficient for them.
Yeah, so this has been really insightful, inspiring, exciting as far as the opportunities that lie ahead for connecting with other practitioners, sharing the results we're seeing, you know, being able to utilize the app and better understanding how this was created. For those that want to be involved and contribute and share and learn from all the others that are doing the same, what are some, you know, places to start? How do you get the app? How do you connect with the community, at least as it stands now? And then, of course, we can update as, you know, new podcast episodes come out and new things are developed. There'll be, you know, new things that are released. But, you know, right now, what's the best way for those practitioners that want to take part to start utilizing the app, learning how to use it effectively and properly with, you know, keeping things specific? What are some first steps that they can take to connect?
Well, the first steps to connect would be on our social media. Right now, we're on our Facebook page, Bodyline Pro. And then you can, our website, go to our website, bodylinepro.com. And from there, there's links from the website to all our social media accounts. And, you know, become a part of our group and, you know, give us feedback, you know, comment on the stuff that we post. And also within the app, there's feedback. There's a feedback button. There's a support button in the app, so they can contact us anytime. It goes straight to me. You can also go email me at support@bodylinepro.com. And you know, I respond to all the emails. And right now, that's the way that we can really start building the community and you know, giving this more of a conversation. And like I said earlier, we're talking about how can we maybe create this private group, and if we're going to do that on LinkedIn or on Facebook, we don't know yet now, but we'll definitely be, you know, sending notification out through our system. Anytime anybody registers for the app, we have their email. We never sell or share anybody's information. I'm adamant on that. I'll never do that because I hate spam myself. So, and that's the way that we're also going to be sharing, you know, what's the latest, what's going on in the community of Bodyline Pro or with the users of Bodyline Pro, to be able to find out what is happening most recently for us. So
cool. Any final comments before we wrap up as far as you know, direction of the podcast? Obviously, this is our first episode. You know, we've got some more episodes to come, but just, you know, what you like to cultivate through the podcast. This is our first episode here, and how people can connect in this way too.
Just off of that, what I'm really interested in this podcast is this is actually part of that community building that we're doing right now. We haven't launched yet, but when you're watching this video, that there's either more podcasts on here. We're setting out to talk with all our users. We want to get to know all the users of Bodyline Pro. I want to know what you're doing. I want to geek out with them, going like, what are you doing? How are you doing? Like what do you know? Let's look at some photos. Looks like, how did you get that? And like, what process did you go through to get that? And that's also going to be creating that community. So if you want to be on the podcast, contact me. You know, if you feel like you have some stuff to share, contact me. You know, let's get it out there. Let's push this stuff out. Let's share our knowledge. And part of our tagline is kind of cheesy, but part of our tagline is capture, compare, and share. Let's share it let's all benefit from the knowledge that we're all gathering. And you know, the podcast that's part of the intention of the podcast, to get it out there and show what's going on. You know, so if you want to be a part of the podcast, email me, and we can talk. We can set up a time to talk. And then this stuff will be on, it'll be on YouTube and Apple and all that stuff. And so it also helps that person, and essentially, I don't want to focus on the marketing aspect, but they'll be able to use that material to be able to, in a sense, market their own practice too, which I'm really excited about helping people do to some degree, is market their practice so that they can we can build them up much more in their community where they are if they're not already there. Mm-hmm. Maybe they need it more globally, who knows. Mm-hmm. But I really I've been helped by so many people. Mm-hmm. I've been helped by a lot of people, and I want to pay that forward.
Cool, man. Well, I'm really appreciative to be sitting here next to you and just have watched the span of growth over the number of years we've been working together, to see this be created and manifested, your commitment to not only being extremely honest and transparent in your own work, both with your clients and also in your progression of the way you move forward, but also your commitment to sharing that with others in a transparent way as well. And I'm really excited I'm very grateful for the work that I've done with you, and very grateful that you've taken that approach, because it's really helped me in my body. And I'm just really excited to see how this community, this app, and everything you're creating behind it is going to impact the lives of so many other people, both the clients that they serve and the practitioners themselves. So thank you so much for everything you've done to create this so far, and I'm really excited to be a part of everything that's to come.
Thanks, Dave.
Yep. And for everyone else that's listening and watching, thanks for participating, and we'll see you all in the next episode of his podcast. See you next time.
Thanks.
For more information about Bodyalign Pro, visit www.bodyalignpro.com. You can download the app for free on the App Store or Google Play. If you are enjoying this, please be sure to subscribe so you can get each new episode as soon as it's available. Once again, thanks for watching.